Chapter 201. Is Elena envious of Song Yue? In the emperor's chamber, the father continued to practice calligraphy while the son is listening to his words. So, here's the story. Song Yue has abducted by some unknown person in the middle of the night. The demands are the cancellation of her marriage with Jai Minjiu and the resignation of her father. There are only 2 days till her marriage, so it's likely the other major clans are the culprits. I need you to use your organization's spy network to find her location. Remember that no one should even know about it. Now, give me the price for the task. The fourth prince was a little bit taken aback by his father's words, not about Song Yue's abduction but about the money. Father, I mean, Your Majesty, what's the need for the price? You rarely ask me a favor. I will do my best to find her. The emperor, however, doesn't seem to change his mind. He said, as I said before, you are here as the leader of Web and I don't want to owe something to the organization that I loathe. So, if you are interested to take up this task, quote the price. If you aren't, then I will send the investigators to find her. Whether you want to treat me as a customer or not, it is up to you. Shang Bo was a little bit heartbroken by how his father is treating him like a stranger even though they were alone and not in the imperial court. Forget about speaking nicely. His father wasn't even looking at him as he gave the task. All right, Your Majesty, I will charge the imperial palace after finishing the task based on the resources we have used. Shang Bo answered him. The emperor nodded. Okay, you can go now. He continued his work. Shang Bo slowly got up on his feet and left the room in silence. After exiting the emperor's chamber, he clenched his fist and released it a few times with a look of frustration on his face. He didn't even ask me how I or my mother was doing for once. Are we no longer related in his eyes? Meanwhile, inside the chamber, Emperor Shang stopped his calligraphy practice and let out a deep sigh. I'm sorry, my son, but I can never acknowledge you as long as you are tied to that vile organization, which is indirectly responsible for the death of my wife. If only I was strong enough, I would have uprooted it from this land. Perhaps I should look for an unorthodox method to break the shackles of my potential and enter Exalt realm. He sighed once again and continued with his hobby. The next day morning, the Genesis weapon store is opened at 7 o'clock as usual. While Elena was accompanying Song Yue so that she won't feel lonely, and Alan was looking after the store as Lin Zhu was out of the city, Mark was stuck to his seat and got busy with his creation of ammunition. He was also waiting for Chang Bo to arrive, as he needs his luck on the lottery wheel for a 100% chance. Of course, he can also do the same with Song Yue, but she only has 5 points of luck. By absorbing 3 points from her, he doesn't want her to face bad luck. If her luck becomes low, then it might even be possible that something will go wrong with Lin Zhu's mission, and Song Yue's location might get exposed. Why take such a chance when he can just wait for a couple of hours? As he spent the time in creation, a couple of customers arrived. They were repeat customers who came to buy the 9 bullets. Being in a situation where he needed to store them, Mark put a restriction on the amount, selling them only 20 each. At around 8 o'clock, Elena sent him a message, reminding him about the breakfast. Mark generally skips breakfast and usually eats only 2 or 3 times a week, but since there's a guest upstairs, he didn't miss an opportunity to eat with a fellow human who also happened to be a beautiful woman. So how did the morning hours go? Asked Song Yue as soon as she saw him. Well, business during weekdays won't be that great, Mark replied with a sigh as he took his seat. Didn't you say you have pending orders from the second prince to be delivered? Once Brother Wen purchases the weapons and the firearms division is implemented in the army, the store will get busier. Song Yue tried to cheer him up. By the way, food is ready. Please go and wash your hands. I will help Sister Elena to arrange the table. No, you don't need to do that. Mark hurriedly waved his hands. You are a guest, you know. It's just arranging the dishes on the table. Not a big deal. Song Yue felt bad for Elena as the work increased because of her. She wants to repay her somehow, but what can she do? She can't help with cooking because she has never done it in the past 22 years of her life. The other menial tasks were done by the butler robot, and also completely beneath her status to even think of helping in them. So, all she can do is help out with this small task. "Thank you," Mark smiled and left to his room. As he was walking away, for some reason, he felt this exchange of conversation was a bit strange, but when he thought about it for a second, he didn't find anything amiss. He shook his head and continued to walk. At that moment, neither of them had spotted Elena, who just exited the kitchen room but halted her steps, watching them in silence. She felt a disturbance in her chest. Was something wrong with my energy core? She wondered. After finishing the breakfast, Mark came downstairs and resumed his business. During the next hour, a few customers arrived at the store, but only one of them purchased an AK-47 along with 100 rounds, 7.62x39 for a combined price of 150 gold coins. Of course, Alan had to give a demo to this wealthy customer at the grounds, spending 10 rounds. So that gives him the profit of 80 gold coins. Mark was satisfied with it. Being in a good mood, he started creating the 9 rounds with more enthusiasm. About 10 minutes before 9, Changbo finally reported. Mark's smile grew wider. "Welcome, Changbo. I was waiting for you." The teenager already guessed it. It's that day already. Changbo is working at the store for more than 2 weeks, so it's safe to say that he had already familiar with Mark's character. And this exact welcome was given about a week ago too. He doesn't know what this owner does with his luck, but it doesn't matter. He decided to work until the closing hours, doing overtime. The teenage whelpier nodded. "Yes, I'm prepared." "Absorb." Mark raised his right hand, where the gold ring on his index finger glowed for the next 30 seconds. Ding, 3 points of luck were absorbed. Open lottery wheel. The lottery wheel with 5 available items and 16 empty spaces appeared before him. Unique skill, Peak Potion +2, Reconnaissance Satellite and Light Combat Aircraft. Except for the satellite and unique skill, everything would be useful. Ah no, that's not right. Unique skills can be overpowered too. With the support provided by the Amulet of Magic, my current intelligence stat is at 6.2. The Thunderblast skill will let me obliterate any individual under 9 circle. Well, legendary realm spirit warriors have their own ways to protect themselves. So, I can't take it for granted. However, if I have another unique skill with the same capability, then it will only give me more power. But then again, as the war is going to start soon, and the developments around me are making it tough for me to stay with my plans, I need to possess something that can give me an edge over others. So an aircraft and a Peak Potion are the best options. Let's hope for the best. He clicked on the spin. 300 credits were deducted and the wheel started to spin. Previously, he would worry about whether he was able to get a reward, and now he was worried about whether he gets the desired one. After 10 seconds of spinning, the wheel stopped, bringing a satisfactory smile to Mark's face. Ding! Chapter 202, Overpowered Lightning Clone. Ding, congratulations, you won, +2 chance as a reward. +2 reward on the lottery wheel doesn't give him any benefit. All it does is to remove the empty spot and let him spin again for the remaining rewards. Since Mark already possessed 10 luck points for the next 5 minutes, it isn't useful to him, but he was worried that he will draw +2 at the end where there aren't any options and waste a week of waiting time. Now that it had already arrived, he felt as if a small burden was removed from his head. Unique skill, Peak Potion, Reconnaissance Satellite and Light Combat Aircraft. A new wheel popped up, which is equally divided into 4 rewards. He clicked on the spin once again. Ding, congratulations, you won unique skill as a reward. Ding, 2 attributes are detected in your body. Please select one attribute to choose a random unique skill. At first, he thought of choosing the ice attribute as he had chosen lightning during his previous chance, but then he remembered that he would receive a new bloodline skill when he breakthroughs again. Every spirit warrior who had awakened a bloodline would usually receive the knowledge of one skill automatically at 2 circle, 4 circle, 6 circle, 8 circle, and 10 circle. Mark wasn't any different in this either. So in the end, he chose the lightning attribute again. There's also another reason to choose it. Unlike the ice attribute that had chosen him, lightning was chosen by him when he first became the spirit warrior. It was indeed a bit special in Mark's eyes. Ding, you had chosen the lightning attribute, drawing a random skill from the system's database. Ding, lightning clone has been added to the skill list. Because of its name, Mark opened the skill list right away and checked the effects of the skill. Damn, it is fucking up. This is what I've been looking for. Lightning clone. Create a clone made of lightning attribute and ether energy, controlling it like a puppet from a distance. Cost, 1% ether energy second. Range, 500 meters. CD, 0 seconds. Effects. 1. Strength of the lightning clone will be one whole realm above the highest stat of the user during the time of unleashing the skill. Maximum stat, 10.9. 2. The clone will release an enormous amount of energy upon being destroyed, causing serious damage to the enemies standing nearby. In such a case, the user cannot resummon the clone for the next 12 hours. Mark felt like the skill he acquired is 10 times better than the other rewards because of its potential. If he can become a supreme realm being in the future 9th circle, then he would have the strength of a demigod. How amazing is that? Even now, if he summons the clone, it will have 7.2 stats of strength. Even without the help of the androids or the helicopter perhaps, he can fight head-on with Bai Zun. He was so happy that he gave 10 gold coins to Chang Bo as a bonus reward. The teenager didn't understand why he was given money out of nowhere, but judging by his employer's expression, he felt like something good had probably happened to the owner. He naturally didn't refuse the free money and thanked him. Mark didn't forget to check on the statue of Velkazar. There was still a few days left for its 14-day cooldown timer to end. Should he absorb Chang Bo's luck again? He wondered. A couple of hours passed away. Mark's mood returned to normal, and he immersed himself in creation until lunchtime. With only a few customers in the store, he didn't feel the need to pay too much attention to his surroundings. Post-lunch, he decided to hand over the security and supervision to Elena, counter to Alan while he stayed upstairs, and talked with Song Yue for a while before he cooped himself in his room to focus on creation, although not for long. About 4 in the afternoon, he received a message from Alan, forcing him to stop his work and rush downstairs to find Shang Jiao in the store. Why was she here? Isn't she supposed to be outside the city? Or did she already complete the task of bringing the Song clan's ancestor to the imperial city? These questions popped up in Mark's head at first, but he didn't dwell deep into them as there was someone else standing next to her. It is the second prince. First, the lightning clone skill, and now, the second prince is here to finish the deal and let him complete the side quest. He felt like the day was lucky for him. The prince greeted Mark with a smile. It's been a while, Lu Zhen. Sorry for the late, though. I was preoccupied with something urgent matters. I understand, Your Highness. Mark returned the greetings with a nod before taking a glance at his sister. And what about the princess? I thought she had taken leave for some trip. Shang Jiao gave a sheepish smile in response. Mother refused to give me permission to go out. Then I heard that Brother Wen is arriving, so I stayed at the palace. It's all right. You are on the leave anyway. What you do with it isn't my concern. Mark waved his hand, forcing out a smile. He had doubts about whether this spoiled princess really intended to go with Lin Zhu. He believed that she used it as an excuse to not work. Since he was in a good mood, he doesn't want to do something unpleasant as handing out punishment. Moreover, the second prince might be displeased with his actions if it was done in front of his eyes, so he can at least cut off some slack for her. Mark shifted his attention back to the prince. By the way, Your Highness, we have got a ton of new rifles, which put those pistols to shame. Would you like to take a look before I present you that secret weapon? It looks like your manufacturer is on a roll, Lu Zhen. The second prince joked in response, surprising the princess. Every time I meet you, you will have new weapons. But then again, I came to Imperial City for a 3-day visit, so I can afford the time. Great, we have the training ground over there. I'll present you the new ones, one after another. Mark pointed at the exit where the soldiers at the large entrance gate could be seen even from the counter. After informing him, he once again got back his attention to his sister, Princess Shang. "Follow me to the rifle chamber. Need some assistance." Before Shang Jiao replied to him, Chang Bo, who was nearby, answered, "I will go with you, Lord Lu." Mark abruptly turned his head towards the teenage boy before throwing a key at him. "Don't worry. You also have some work to do. Go to the storage room and pick up 50 vases from it, and then go to the training ground to arrange 10 of them with a 1-meter distance between them. You know where to place them." Every day, after finishing the spar, Alan would visit the market and brings a lot of vases with him. And then, Mark would transfer some of them into the storage room, which he originally used to keep the empty wooden boxes and weapons-filled boxes for outward appearance. Yes. As Chang Bo went to the storage room, Mark walked towards the room where a note was stuck on the door that says rifle. She slowly followed her brother, assuming that he will lecture her about her absence. But instead, he simply asked her whether she told the second prince about Song Yue or not. In response, Shang Jiao shook her head. "No, I told you that I keep it a secret." "Well, after we go to the training ground, go upstairs and ask Lady Song whether I can inform him or not," Mark said to her. As an afterthought, he added, "Your brother is in a position to help her more than anyone." "I'm not sure about that, though. Shang Jiao thinks that it is a bad idea, as the second prince is someone with principles. One of them is that he won't stand injustice when it concerns his friends. So, if he knew the truth, the first thing he'll do is to storm into the imperial palace and blow up the matter in the court." After listening to the advice of the princess, Mark decided to keep mum on the matter and return to the reception. "Shall we go?" While Alan continued to look after the store, Mark walked along with the second prince and fifth princess to the training ground. Chapter 203. The first mass-produced modern ether weapon. Imperial Palace. After the court session is over, Shang Bo went to the emperor's chamber to meet his father to report the investigation results, as 2 days of time were finished. Unfortunately for the emperor, Song Yue's location hasn't been tracked yet, but received a shocking piece of news. "Minister Song deceived me." The emperor flared up in anger upon hearing that the ransom note that Song Yun presented was a fake and Song Yue wasn't abducted but ran away on her own. He might be disappointed with this fourth child of his. Nevertheless, as a father, he trusts him. However, he was also an emperor who can't take his word for granted. So he said sternly, "I'm going to summon Minister Song here and ask him directly. If he doesn't apologize and stick to his earlier words, then you will have to prove yourself innocent, or else you will be punished for giving false information to the emperor. Then I will go and start preparing to gather the evidence, Your Majesty." Unlike the last time, Shang Bo didn't show emotions on his face and behaved like the leader of Web. Soon after he left, the chief eunuch was summoned, and he was told to invite Song Yun to the imperial palace for the dinner. Since Song Yun is the cousin of Bai Zun, who is not only the supreme commander, but also the brother-in-law of the emperor, Shang Fu would try to be less harsh on this minister of public works, even though lying to the emperor is considered a huge crime. It is why he wanted to handle this privately. Meanwhile, at the Genesis training ground. "So this is the mighty weapon that will bring revolution to the army." The second prince stared at the panzer in awe. He further commented, "It looks like a lesser version of your, what was it called again? Yeah, battle tank, isn't it?" "Yeah, you can say so. The machine guns on the top can be controlled while you control the vehicle. And there." Mark explained to him everything about the mobility of the vehicle and the firepower of the weapon. It looked like the princess also appeared to be amazed by its prowess. To be able to kill a bunch of 4-circle experts by just spending extra money is something that is out of her expectations. What's more, even a normal civilian will be able to do that. No wonder her father doesn't want to go against her brother. What would happen if he sells these to the northern empires? It would indeed threaten the safety of the Phoenix Empire. Shang Jiao was only getting impressed by the weapons sold by her brother. She couldn't help but really wonder, where do all these amazing weapons come from? Who is that mysterious manufacturer? Is it perhaps Brother Lu's master? As Mark led him inside the panzer and gave a demonstration of driving, Shang Jiao became curious and asked for a drive after a little bit of hesitation. Mark wanted to refuse it, but because of Shang Wen, he complied with the request and let her experience the feeling inside the panzer. Unfortunately, she doesn't like it as she felt suffocated inside. She didn't say it, but her expression made it obvious to Shang Wen. The prince chuckled as he pinched her nose. That was a vehicle designed for battle, not to roam around. She puffed her cheeks and looked away in response. I know that. For a moment, Mark felt a little bit envious as he saw the closeness between his siblings, but he reminded himself that he wasn't a part of their family, and the two of them are nothing but the children of the Emperor. Ahem. Clearing his throat, he then said, Since we have the training ground here, you can send the soldiers. Alan will train them for a month, and as I said to His Majesty, for any new weapon you buy in bulk, at least 50 in number, he will be available to train your soldiers. The second prince soon decided to make an order. They returned to the store and completed the pending transactions first. 5,000 bullets 9.20 M99 sniper rifles with 2,000 rounds, .5-inch caliber, 10 rocket launchers with 1,000 warheads, 10 grenade launchers with 1,000 grenades, 40. It totals 31,000 gold coins, which was finalized back when Mark was a guest in Shang Wen's camp. Alan carefully packed them from system-provided sturdy metal boxes, with the imprint of the store printed on top of it. The prince handed him the rest of the money, not only completing the deal, but also unknowingly helping him to complete the quests. Ding, you completed side quest I. Ding, you completed side quest II. After that, the second prince made a new order for the army, which is 5,000 rounds 2,000 rounds RIP, 50 panzers, 100 AK-47s, and 3,000 rounds of 7.62 caliber. This deal is about 40,000 gold coins. This might not be as high as the one made by Prince Feng Wu, but Mark was more than satisfied because of the potential transactions in the future. But the army needs to get drunk in success after success and increase its dependence on modern weapons. Once the deal was completed, the second prince didn't feel the need to stay much longer at the store and thought of returning to the palace, but then, Shang Jiao asked Mark about using the training ground for sparring. It surprised him a little bit, but he nodded. Meanwhile, the prince realized the meaning behind her words. As soon as she looked at him, Shang Wen accepted her challenge. All right, let's see how much you have improved. At first, Mark wasn't interested to become a spectator, but then, he thought that it would be better to learn about their abilities in case they become opponents in the future. But before that, there's something else that he needs to do. Mark then said to the both of them to proceed to the training ground again while he will join them a bit later. Once the brother and sister pair is out of his sight, he spoke to the system. Open quest list. A holographic screen with quest details appeared before him. Main QSDS. Main quest I. Sell a total of 10,000 firearms in progress. 876-10000. Reward, submachine gun all models. Main quest II, become rank 6. Reward, host share increases to 70% permanently and 16,000 credits. Main quest III, create 10 types of weapons at the factory. In progress 010. Reward, a random ether version of the host's designed weapon. Side QSDS. Side quest I. Earn a total of 100,000 gold coins from selling the weapons created by the system, excluding the ammunition. Completed. Reward ether pistol. Side quest II. Sell exclusive weapons to 10 different people. Completed. Reward C4. Side quest III. Spend a total of 500,000 credits in progress. 605,00000. Reward Amulet of Du. Side quest IV. Tame 10 monsters for 10. Reward Taming skill. Mark proceeded to click on the completed side quests. Ding, ether pistol has been unlocked. Check the gallery for details. Ding, you received a new side quest. Ding, C4 basic and C4 advanced have been unlocked. Check the gallery for details. Ding, you received a new side quest. Okay, let's see what the first sellable modern ether weapon looks like. Mark eagerly opened the gallery and proceeded to click on the one with the image of a revolver that has a star attached to the image at the top right. He clicked on it to check the details. Ether pistol. Grade copper. Maximum power, peak 2 circle 2.9. Maximum effective range, 50 meters. Description: a semi-automatic revolver with 6 rounds capacity. It can absorb the ether energy and transform them into ether bullets. They will be stored in the cylindrical chamber. How to use: press the red button that is located nearby the hammer. The pistol will go into absorption mode. Then, open the cylindrical chamber and pour ether energy into it. The transformation into bullets will happen automatically. Close the cylindrical chamber and drag the hammer for once. Then, you can shoot 6 consecutive ether bullets, one after another by clicking the trigger. Note 1. As the ether pistol can only hold the maximum power of 2 circle, which is 999 ether points in each, the maximum ether energy it can absorb is 5994 ether points, equivalent to ether energy from the user. Note 2. The user can also load 9 rounds as a replacement. Price: 64 gold coins. 64 gold coins, huh? Chapter 204.1, Might of Lightning Clone Part 1. Mark wasn't sure whether this ether pistol will work in the market considering its high price, but then again, he doesn't plan to release it right away. So, it isn't something that he needed to worry about right now. Putting aside his thoughts, he created one ether pistol and went to look at the details of C4. Composition 4 Basic. Grade NA. Description: an explosive device that is capable of killing any spirit warrior of 4 circle and lower realm. Blast radius, 25 meters. How to use: set the timer beforehand and place C4 on the destination. Once the detonate button was pressed, it will be blown up after the countdown hits 0. Note: once the timer is set, the explosion cannot be stopped. Price: 150 gold coins. 150 gold coins are cheap if one considers its effect, except that not having control is a bit risky. Let's see this advanced version. Composition 4 Advanced. Grade NA. Description: an explosive device that is capable of killing any spirit warrior of 5 circle and lower realm. Blast radius, 60 meters. How to use: a remote will come as a set with the device. Set the timer beforehand and place C4 on the destination. Once the detonate button was pressed, it will be blown up after the countdown hits 0. Note: the timer can be stopped, reduced, and increased by the remote control. However, the user must be within 100 meters radius of the explosive device to control the remote. Price: 700 gold coins. Damn, that's too expensive, Mark gasped in shock, but when his eyes fell on key details, he felt like it is worth the amount. Even though the warhead shot by the rocket launcher and the Fordim grenade launched by the grenade launcher achieve similar results, the application of C4 is different from them. Combined with Elena's invisibility, this explosive device had the potential to become a very lethal weapon. Ahead of the upcoming war, he could help the Kunyu bandits by letting Elena plant secretly these devices in the capital city of Western Yan. System: open new quests. Side quest: earn a total of 1 million gold coins from selling the weapons created by the system, excluding ammunition. Reward: ether sniping rifle silver grade, ether assault rifle silver grade. Side quest: expand the business by opening a second branch in a different city and appointing a manager. Reward: store guardian. Oh, a store guardian. Mark immediately inquired with the system and learned that the store branches don't enjoy the privilege of ultimate defense skill that protects the main branch from attacks. So, a guardian robot will be placed at the store. It will protect the branch manager when he is inside the store and the building from threats. However, it will neither listen to the orders of the branch manager, nor will it ever involve in the matters that are out of its job. For example, if the branch manager is being murdered outside the store, and if that person asks for its help, it won't budge from its spot. Even Mark cannot force it to do anything as he does with the butler robot or the androids. As it didn't bring him a great advantage, he didn't think too much about it and closed down the window. He then proceeded to create a bunch of Panzers and AK-47s along with 7.62 ammunition. As it has a bulk option, it only took him 4 clicks to create 1,000 of them. Of course, he didn't forget to wear the glove of creation to increase the success rate by 25%, which increased the 80% success rate for 7.62 round to 100%. While he created the second prince's order within a few minutes, Mark planned to give him the Panzers a couple of weeks later, or more like once the war is over in Western Yan. After he was done with the creation, he went to the training ground and found that the brother and sister appeared to be in a rather serious battle in contrast with a friendly spar, well at least from Shang Jiao's side. Mark saw the princess was bleeding quite a lot, but she was resilient in her attacks as if her life depended on it. On the other hand, the second prince barely has any scratches on his arm. Thankfully, neither of them is using their personal semi-divine weapons, or else the destruction in the surroundings would have been severe. Thud! For the nth time, Shang Jiao crashed onto the ground. With the blazing phoenix wings spread apart, Shang Wen looked down at his sister and said, "Give up, Xiao Jiao. You cannot defeat me in your present state. And ice is destined to melt when faced with fire. Instead of stubbornly depending on your attribute, focus on developing ether techniques." Shang Jiao spits out a mouthful of blood as she slowly got on her feet. "No, I don't agree with your statement. There was a reason why the Blizzard Pegasus has never been defeated by the Phoenix." Shang Wen shook his head. "But you aren't the Blizzard Pegasus and I'm not the Phoenix. Neither you can acquire the ability of Absolute Zero, nor can I acquire the ability of Resurrection. So, you should stop being stubborn about believing nonsense that you are the representative of Blizzard Pegasus. Out of us 5 siblings, you are the most talented child. Father is hopping you to become a supreme being in the near future, but if you are like this, then you can never become one, Xiao Jiao." Shang Jiao didn't agree with his words. She wiped the blood around her lips and stared sharply at her half-brother as she unleashed ice wings. "Watch me. I'll prove you wrong." The 5th princess became dead serious now and finally took out her personal weapon, an exquisite staff adorned with several crystals at its head. She took a great leap to the back and then raised the staff. "Oh, the goddess of snow and ice, Tingliu, I crave thou to bless me the strength to unleash the serpent of ice and vanquish the enemies from my sight." The tip of the semi-divine staff glowed for a second before conjuring a giant ice serpent, changing the facial expressions of Mark and Shang Wen. Both of them became serious, although for different reasons. While Mark wants the training ground to not get damaged, the second prince, on the other hand, realized that his words had fallen deaf on her ears. So, he decided to show the might of his strength. He too summoned his flaming sword. As he raised the sword above his head, the flames on the sword grew stronger as well as increased in size. He then flapped his wings and flew towards the incoming attack. As the two opposite forces moved toward each other, Mark felt like he should stop it somehow. He decided to make his move with the new skill he acquired. Lightning Clone Activate. A being that looked quite identical to Mark appeared before him. However, there were a few differences. First, sparks were dancing all over this being. Second, this being has blue eyes without any visible pupils. And third, unlike Mark, its aura is visible for everyone to see. It is in 7 circle with all stats equal to 7.2. A telepathic link formed between Mark and the clone. It was different from his usual connection with the beasts or the androids. He felt as if the clone was a part of his body. This was a new feeling for him, and he liked it. Mark motioned his hand. The lightning sparks on the clone thickened for a second and it turned into a flash. In an instant, it covered 20 meters of distance and obstructed both of them as their attacks were about to collide. Both of them found the clone and thought that it was Mark. The second prince tried to change his direction, while Shang Jiao also tried to control the movement of the ice serpent. However, before the both of them even made their moves, The clone threw punches left and right simultaneously. The prince groaned in pain as the fist landed in his stomach, blasting him away. Meanwhile, the ice serpent was destroyed into thousands of ice particles, leaving a shock on Shang Jiao's face. Once the battle was halted for a moment, the clone disappeared and a faint voice was heard from a distance. "Okay, that's enough." The brother and sister looked at the source of the voice to find Mark walking towards them calmly, trying his best to control his anger as he looked around the many craters. For a moment, they were confused and glanced at the spot where the clone had disappeared before staring back at him. Chapter 205.2, Might of Lightning Clone Part 2. Upon reaching them, Mark stared at his sister and lectured her in a calm tone. "Your father had lent me this place, Princess Shang. But that doesn't mean that you can do whatever you can and expect that no one will speak against you. This is supposed to be a ground where the weapons are demonstrated. Since it is big enough to train, one can spar if they want, and I have no issue with that. However, if you intend to kill each other, please do elsewhere. I held back earlier because your brother is with you, but it looked like you take everything for granted and don't care about the consequences." Mark indeed doesn't want to disappoint a valuable client like the second prince, but he couldn't turn a blind eye when his temporary property was going to be damaged because of these two imperial children, especially Shang Jiao. Moreover, he was also a little bit irked by how the princess went back on her promise about tagging along with Lin Zhu. So he didn't hold back in scolding her. Shang Jiao felt a mixture of emotions in her chest. On one hand, she was annoyed with Mark's behavior toward her. On the other hand, there's her promise to her mother. Apart from these two, there's helplessness about her strength when compared to both of her brothers. Not to mention, there's an embarrassment for showing poor performance. She felt the urge to shout out loud that they were siblings, but can't even say it because her actions can lead to disastrous consequences if she doesn't time them right. As a result, she was frustrated. Thankfully, she learned self-control, so she swallowed all the words at the back of her tongue and apologized while looking down at her feet. "I guess I got a bit reckless. I'm sorry." Maybe it is the blood, or maybe Mark felt that he was harsh on her. He felt a little bit bad upon seeing her expression. Mark's expression softened. "It's all right. Things can happen. As long as you are mindful of your surroundings, no one would complain." Mark then turned towards the second prince. "I apologize for interrupting your sparring session, Your Highness, but I think your fight has gone the limits of what one would call a sparring session. So I'm concluding this spar as a tie and ask the two of you to leave." Mark knew that his words might appear like an insult because Shang Wen is not only an imperial prince, but also a powerful general of the Phoenix Empire. Now, a person like that will have pride and probably a high ego. Normally, he wouldn't give a shit even if he is an emperor, but his necessity once again reminded him to compromise in this situation. Not to mention, this half-brother of his is a respectable figure in the empire and is an elder. At the very least, he can try to be polite with Shang Wen. As a result, after telling them to get out of his training ground, Mark opened the inventory and took an item as he spoke while faking surprise. "I guess I spoke a little bit harsh, forgetting that you are a customer of the store. It's not my intention to be disrespectful. But I won't let you return disappointed. As a token of apology, I will present you with the prototype Panzer. You can take this with you and train your soldiers for the next 2 weeks before the rest of the order get ready." To make sure he doesn't take the words to heart, Mark tried to pacify him by offering a panzer. Of course, this isn't a gift. It was just given in advance. He didn't make any loss here. However, the prince had other plans. Shang Wen knew that he had to bring that same weapon to the training ground for Alan to train his soldiers because he didn't have time to train them in person. He waved his hand. "No, it's not necessary. The one who is in the wrong should apologize whether it is a commoner or an emperor. But if you accept one simple request of mine, I will be content with this trip." "I cannot promise before hearing what it is," Mark right away replied while wondering what it is going to be. "Not another dungeon break or something." Shang Wen then said, "Can you finish the spar that my sister had to halt? I heard that you are a dual attribute summoner. A peak 7 circle and dual attribute. It's not every day that I get such an opportunity to spar. Unlike her, you are responsible. So, I'm confident that you won't go all out, and neither would I do anything that will damage the surroundings. I will also compensate for the destruction caused by my sister, and if it was unintentionally caused by our spar, how about it? A spar, huh? At first, Mark was indeed taken aback as he was the one who was supposed to compensate, but here, the second prince was blaming himself, although without apologizing. But then, he remembered how the lightning clone punched both of them and stopped the battle. Mark wondered whether it is because of that. Not to mention, the second prince is the one who witnessed his power in person during the dungeon break of Cerberus. Of course, back then, he got the power from the peak potion, which is temporary, but now is different. After thinking for a bit, he thought that this proposal is favorable for him and nodded. All right, if that is your wish. Xiao Jiao move, Shang Wen said to his sister in rather a serious tone. Poor Shang Jiao, who displeased both of her brothers, had hung her head down in disappointment. She walked away to watch the battle from a distance. How was a pampered princess like her reduced to such an extent? Both of them then stared at each other. Shang Wen dismissed his semi-divine weapon, and Mark decided to test the full strength of his clone. "Are you ready?" asked Mark. As soon as Shang Wen nodded, Mark activated the skill with a thought in his mind. Lightning Clone activate. The clone was summoned again. The skill's no cooldown period is a big advantage for Mark. Unfortunately, its maximum time is only 100 seconds no matter how strong Mark gets, but then again, it is only one of the skills. As long as he has enough credits, he can buy them in the store, so that's not an issue. Anyway, Mark's clone was ready to battle, and his ether energy is dropping by 1% per second. He couldn't afford to waste any time. So, he gave the order right away, pointing at the second prince. Shang Wen now had a clear look at the lightning clone. He clenched his fist and was ready to face it head-on. The lightning clone charged toward him at its maximum speed. If it was any other 7-circle realm expert who recently made a breakthrough, they wouldn't have even been able to see the clone properly. But Shang Wen was talented and had awakened his phoenix bloodline when he was only 7. Of course, compared to Shang Jiao, who awakened at 3 years old, he might be lacking behind, but that doesn't matter now. All that matters is that his eyes can perfectly follow the clone's movements. As a result, Mark didn't get to see what he expected. The clone launched a fist at Shang Wen, to which the latter responded calmly by ducking before counterattacking with a palm attack. Chapter 206.3, Might of Lightning Clone Part 3. Mark's lightning clone was pushed away a few meters, and Shang Wen had now taken the initiative. But the clone wasn't any weak either. It dodged by instinct and tried to kick him. Through the telepathic connection with the clone, Mark could feel its movements, and he could also sense Shang Wen's movements. From the first couple of exchanges, he understood that the clone isn't probably fast enough to defeat the second prince when he concentrated on it. Since that's the case, let's join. Mark made his move. He went onto the familiar's inventory and summoned the gray wolf. While it was only in a 5-circle, they won't consume his ether. The only worry is that they can't be revived like his summons, so he needed to be careful. Mark wasn't finished there. He mounted on its back and ordered it to go towards the high-speed battle, where neither of them has yet to land a proper attack on either one. Both Shang Jiao and Shang Wen had spotted his movement. The second prince mumbled with a smile, "So, you are finally making your move, huh? I guess I need to give my 100%. Shang Wen's fire wings once again erupted from his back, and ether energy poured into his wrists to increase his power. As Mark was only about 20 meters in range, Shang Wen decided to push away the clone because he wasn't confident in dealing with both of them at once, at least without his semi-divine weapon. He was also successful in pushing away the clone too, and was ready to charge toward Mark, but it was just then that the latter had made his move. "You have moved enough, now freeze for a second." Mark unleashed the first of his bloodline technique, absolute freezing. In an instant, all of his 200-meter surroundings were frozen apart from Shang Jiao, who was safe because of having the same bloodline. Meanwhile, 10,000 ether points were consumed, thereby reducing the time limit of the lightning clone too. Shang Wen's eyes could move, but his whole body was frozen in ice. He found the skill is incredibly similar to that of his sister. Does Mark also has the same bloodline as Blizzard Pegasus, or was this skill? Since he doesn't have the Blizzard Pegasus bloodline like Shang Jiao, he couldn't distinguish it from ordinary freezing techniques. But then again, it isn't the time to analyze around, as his eyes spotted the rushing clone while Mark had stopped. In an instant, he realized that Mark had no intentions to battle him directly and was fooled by his act. He quickly activated his bloodline skill, God of Fire. The flames spread to his whole body and the ice started to melt. But these couple of seconds was enough for the lightning clone to recover the distance and land a full-powered kick in Shang Wen's abdomen. The second prince spits out a mouthful of blood as he flew into the air. He felt a great pain in his stomach. The lightning clone took advantage of the free fall of Shang Wen and leaped towards him, attempting a knee strike. Shang Wen saw the knee attack of the clone while he was still in the air. There was only a fraction of a second before he will be hit again. He doesn't have the luxury of making the decision and just went with whatever came to his mind. While covering his body with the fire wings, he managed to twist his body as he fell to the ground. Mark's lightning clone struck the wings. It pierced through the wings and struck the side of Shang Wen's waist. The second prince let out another groan, feeling heavy pain in the impact area. Thud! He crashed onto the ground. As he was in the seven-circle realm, his ether energy had acquired healing properties. His was recovered within a few seconds, although the pain still lingers. Meanwhile, the lightning clone wasn't faring any better. When it knee-struck its opponent, the flames on his body had latched onto the clone. Soon, the flames had spread all over its body. With no defensive measures against attacks like these, the clone started getting burned, although it wasn't feeling an ounce of pain. So, this is the effect of the Phoenix bloodline skill. Mark felt like he gained some valuable information. As for why he is sure that it was a bloodline skill of a phoenix, it's because the ordinary skills cannot melt the ice at -100°C temperature this quickly. Not knowing how to dismiss the flames, which are harming his clone, Mark then dismissed it and stared at the prince, who slowly got up on his feet. Let's stop here, or else I fear that this spar will turn into a battle and I might be able to hold back. The second prince had long treated Mark as someone of superior strength, so he wasn't disappointed by the loss. Instead, he commented with a smile, "Lu Zhen, you are not only strong but also an astute spirit warrior, and thank you." Mark also knew that the prince didn't give his all, as the spar didn't even last 30 seconds. He nodded. "You are welcome, and I have no problem sparring with you again in the future too, as long as we will suppress our strength to low realms, so that the surroundings won't be impacted." Shang Wen stared at him and blinked his eyes a few times and then asked, "If that's the case, can we spar again tomorrow? I don't know why, but I feel like I will gain some insight if we spar for a bit more time." Mark only said for formality that he was okay with sparring. While he was interested to acquire the info on the prince's battle techniques, he wasn't that desperate to risk his life. It's because his skill can only last 100 seconds at best, and all he has are the weapons and a sure kill technique. Even if the second prince suppresses his strength, Mark's punches weren't even as strong as a two-circle realm fighter. He doesn't want to clear the prince's misunderstanding about his strength either. Thankfully, he had a legitimate reason to refuse him. In the end, he replied, "I'm sorry, but I have a lunch meeting tomorrow." The second prince didn't give up. "Not a problem, we can spar in the evening." The lunch meeting isn't in Imperial City. It is in the Kingdom of Western Moon. I got an invitation from the king and will have to see what he wants with me. Not to mention, I might even stay for another day to tour around the place. Mark explained to him the truth, not only to refuse the spar, but also to relay this message to the Emperor. He doesn't want some idiot to unnecessarily dragging him to a trial. With a false accusation, that he was conspiring with the Western Moon Kingdom. Okay, I understand. Shang Wen was slightly disappointed that he might not get to spar again, but he can't do anything about it. Eventually, he returned to the palace with his sister, while Mark went upstairs to check upon Song Yue. She appeared to be in her room with the door closed. After confirming her life aura and presence by taking Elena's help, he returned downstairs and took a seat, resuming his daily work of ammunition creation. Chapter 207. Shen Ling, the intellectual princess of Western Moon Kingdom. The next day morning. I'll be going, Lady Song. Elena will take care of your protection and your needs. So, there's nothing to worry. Mark was at the bottom of the stairs and looked at Song Yue, who is standing a few steps above. Looking at her worried look, he further said, "You know that I, Elena, and Alan are telepathically connected, so we will be in contact with each other all the time. Don't hesitate to talk to her." Song Yue nodded, forcing out a smile. "Be careful and come back home safely." Soon, Mark and Alan exited the store. While Song Yue stayed upstairs, Elena escorted them out with a little bit of disappointment as she wants to accompany her master, but instead, her master asked her to guard Song Yue, which indicates the level of importance Mark puts on the heiress of Song clan. For some reason, she doesn't like it because of the disturbance in her chest area where her energy core is located, but then again, she can't go against the orders of her master either. She was created to be that way. So, she complied with his order and didn't insist on following him. On the other hand, Alan was on cloud 9. This is the first time his master had taken him outside of the Imperial City. That means Mark trusts that Alan can guard him. At least, that's what the android believed. Once both of them stepped outside, Mark opened the inventory to click on the helicopter. Just as he was about to summon it, something clicked on his mind. Wait a second. The distance between the Imperial City and the city of Lunaris is roughly about 500 kilometers. The time is about 7:50. So, I still have more than 5 hours, and the Eurocopter Tiger will take me there in 2-3 hours as I won't have to worry about any air traffic. So how about Iveco LMV? It will take 6 hours tops to reach there. Or maybe I should be late on purpose. This will also let me realize whether they casually invited me or if they have an important purpose. Let's do that. Mark opened the gallery and proceeded to click on a light multi-role vehicle, which was priced at about 2,500 gold coins. Since he is purchasing for personal reasons, the system treated it as his property and added the money as his debt. If it is purchased by a customer, Mark would have gotten his 60% commission, but unfortunately, self-purchases don't have that privilege. As he pressed on to create a vehicle that most resembles a MUV SUV that people used in his past life had been summoned. One should say it looks very pleasing to the eye, unlike the battle tanks. This time, Mark sat in the driver's seat while sat on the front side beside him. Alan rarely gets an opportunity to become a passenger. He was uncomfortable because his master is doing his job, but at the same time, it was a new feeling for him. Soon, they set out for the kingdom of Western Moon. Elena put up a close board outside the store, indicating that it will remain close for the rest of the day. As the vehicle zoomed through the streets of the city, Mark lowered down the window glass and enjoyed the feeling of getting hit by the wind. Alan tried the same, but he didn't understand why his master was smiling big. Not wanting to disturb Mark's happy time, he stayed silent and gazed outside. On the other hand, Song Yue was feeling anxious as she sat on her bed. She grabbed her chest. I don't know why, but ever since Lu Zhen had told me that he was going out of the city, I was feeling as if something wrong going to happen. I wonder why. Was she worried for her own safety in his absence? Or was she worried that it is a trap for Mark? Or whether it is something else? She has no idea why, but that feeling isn't disappearing at all, even after Mark tried to make her understand that there's nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, the Imperial Palace got the news about his visit to a foreign kingdom. Fortunately or unfortunately, it wasn't the spies that informed the Emperor. The princess is the source of the information. She stayed at home, and when asked by Lan Jingyi, she told her everything except for Song Yue's matter. Naturally, the emperor is interested in Mark's movements and Shangbo. The fourth prince was more than happy to help him out at any time. As a result, the spies were activated at the Western Moon's palace. About 5 hours passed away. Lunaris City, Western Moon Kingdom. The time was noon, and the lunch preparations were going on in the kitchens. The king appeared to be a little bit angry as he sat along with his prime minister, Zhu Jianhong. "Are you sure that he will come?" the king asked him again as he took a look at his pocket watch. "It's almost 1." Earlier, Zhu Jianhong was brimming with confidence, but he wasn't sure now. Still, he cannot back down when he raised the hopes of the king. It's true that he had left his store 5 hours ago in a strange vehicle made of metal. Our spies also confirmed that its speed is at least half a fold faster than the maximum speed of our fastest horse. So, he might arrive at any minute. Let's wait for a bit. "I hope this meeting is worth the wait, Prime Minister Zhu." The king furrowed his brows as he warned him. "If the information you gathered will turn out to be nothing but a false rumor, you should be aware of the consequences." "That I can confirm, Your Majesty." Zhu Jianhong was watching the king from close ever since he took up the post about a decade ago when the previous prime minister had died. Previously, the king used to be kind and generous, but ever since he had lost his prime minister during a military coup, he became stricter on the subjects, acted stern towards his own daughter, and looks down on his officials too much. But then again, all of this had nothing to do with Zhu Jianhong, as he was always good at his job, and if he had done something wrong, there would always be someone to blame. And now that he had gambled big to cover up his corruption, Zhu Jianhong can only hope for the best. In the meantime, at the king's quarters, a fairly decent-looking lady was changing her clothes one after another while her maids were putting up with it, and constantly praising her beauty. "So how is this one?" she asked them. One of the maids gave the same reply she was giving for the past 30 minutes. "You look absolutely stunning, Your Highness." The other maid silently nodded in agreement, for she was tired to give another compliment. I guess this one goes through with my jewelry." The lady looked herself in the mirror and smiled. "Mother said that the guest is not only in the seven-circle realm but also young and looks quite handsome." "But isn't he a commoner?" a maid blurted out unknowingly, and she immediately bowed to the princess upon suddenly remembering that the princess doesn't like it. "I apologize for speaking out of turn." "It's all right," Princess Shenling looked at her and further stated. "One cannot earn respect simply by growing up in a wealthy household, lei pijai. It is given by one's actions. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors were farmers. Now, we are ruling over the commoners and nobles. Why? It's because our ancestors worked hard, gained the acknowledgement of people whether through strength or goodwill, and then occupied a huge chunk of land. The same goes for the other empires. Originally, no king or even an emperor owns the land because they aren't the ones who created it. What they can do is rule over the piece of land in exchange for serving the people who live on it. Now, if those kings or their descendants became arrogant and became vile people, then their doom is imminent. Anyway, I care about what matters and ignore what doesn't. And whether he was worthy of me or not, the answer lies in his personality and actions. Well, actions depend on situations, so I guess personality is a priority here. There's a reason why the maids of mine get transferred to other people very frequently. It's because they were dishonest and deceitful. That's why never give empty praises just to keep your job if you want to stay with me. That is, neither you will get any respect from me nor will I be able to trust you with important things." The maids were stiffened for a moment, as they felt like they were seen through. Chapter 208. Eat Everything, Prime Minister Zhu. Time 3:45 p.m. Royal Moon Palace, Lunaris City. A family of 4 along with the Prime Minister and a general was having a late lunch together in silence. It is the king, the queen, their daughter, and their nephew who lost his parents nearly 2 decades ago. The lunch was rather grand with several dishes on a long dining table, but except for the king's nephew, no one looked like they were enjoying the delicacies. Zhu Jianhong was sweating bullets at the calmness of King Shen Niu. He felt like the calm before the storm. The Prime Minister kept glancing at him from time to time, wanting to say something, but nothing could come out of his mouth because of fear. At the same time, he was also hoping to receive a message from one of his spies that Mark had entered the city. The princess was the first to finish her lunch. "I'm going back to my room, Your Majesty." As the king nodded, she left the dining room and returned to her room in disappointment, as she dolled up herself for a long time just to meet the guest, but the guy never came. One after another, the king's nephew, the general, and then the queen left the dining room. Usually, they would have to stay until the king was done with his food, but they received the order to leave as soon as they filled their stomachs. Eventually, King Shen Niu and Prime Minister Zhu Jianhong were only left. The king had yet to scold him. Once he was also done with the lunch, Zhu Jianhong got up on his feet and bowed. "Your Majesty, permit me to excuse myself." The king finally talked to him. He replied, "Where are you going, Prime Minister Zhu? There's a lot of food on the table." Zhu Jianhong didn't understand his words. "Your Majesty, our cooks worked hard from the morning. You shouldn't waste it, you know." The king calmly said to him, "Finish everything and leave." Realization dawned upon the Prime Minister. His punishment is finally here. He gulped his saliva and took a glance at the table. There was a lot of food on the table, which will be enough for at least 100 or even more. On the other hand, he was already full. How would he be able to accomplish the task? Well, technically, he can finish it with the help of his ether energy. If he can direct his ether energy into his stomach, he can digest his food quicker than the natural process, but there's bowel movement he also needed to consider. It is embarrassing to even consider. So in the end, he decided to burn all the food that goes to the stomach instead of digesting it. However, this needs to be done carefully, or else he would harm his own stomach organ and get hospitalized for weeks. 15 minutes past 4. The king also left his chamber, leaving behind a trusted royal knight to keep an eye on the Prime Minister. Royal knights in the Western Moon Kingdom are special. They listen to no one but the Supreme General, equivalent to Supreme Commander, or the king. Even the princess doesn't have any right to order them. The Prime Minister started burning the food that was just stored in the stomach. It took 15 minutes to clear up the space and resumed his eating. About an hour passed away. There's still a lot of food to eat, and he kept on cursing the king as well as Mark for making his life hell. "That damn weapon seller, he made a fool out of me. If only I was strong enough, I would have buried him into the ground, and as for Shen Niu, I would have choked him to death, pushing all the food into burpa. My stomach has been filled." Another hour passed away. "I cannot go on anymore." The Prime Minister was mentally tired, and by now, he had lost all the interest in these delicacies, feeling like he wouldn't be able to touch them for the rest of his life. Even the royal knight who was observing him for the past couple of hours felt pity. Unfortunately, he couldn't go against the orders of the king and help the Prime Minister. It was then that a talisman made out of energy suddenly appeared in front of Zhu Jianhong's eyes. In a fraction of a second, it disappeared into his forehead, and a voice message directly came to his head. His lifeless eyes suddenly lit up and he got up on his feet, leaving the food on the plate. "Hu Jai, go and tell His Majesty that the guest had finally arrived in the city. I will proceed with the welcome arrangements." "Please wait here." The royal knight obviously didn't believe him and only walked toward the doorkeeper and gave the task to him. As the doorkeeper rushed towards the king's quarters, Hu Jai returned to the dining table and stood in his earlier place while keeping an eye on the Prime Minister. Zhu Jianhong didn't mind the royal knight's actions and continued to communicate with his trusted spies. Now that the guest is in the city, it is easy for him to track Mark and his vehicle. Meanwhile, in the streets of Lunaris City, an armored vehicle was leisurely passing through the stores, attracting the attention of every passerby as they had never seen such a vehicle in their lives. It was moving on its 4 strange wheels without the help of a beast. As expected, it is a carbon copy of Imperial City. Mark found that whether it is the architecture of the residences and stores or the city structure, everything is the same in the Imperial City. It felt as if he was roaming nearby his home. Mark lost interest and decided to not waste time touring around and stepped on the accelerator, speeding up the vehicle. Even though the Lunaris city isn't as large as the imperial city of the Phoenix Empire, it is still a big city spanning more than 1,000 km. It is bound to get some time to reach there. After nearly 35 minutes, Mark finally reached the entrance gate of the palace. Naturally, he expected the soldiers to get hostile, so he rolled down the window glass to show them the invitation letter, but to his surprise, the gates were opened and no one stopped him from entering the palace compound. Now this is unexpected. Mark peeked outside at the soldiers who stepped aside and were staring curiously at the vehicle. "Thank you," he nodded with a smile as he slowly drove forward. Upon reaching the palace, Mark and Alan stepped outside of the vehicle where a familiar-looking person is waiting for him at the bottom of the steps. "Welcome to Lunaris, Mr. Lu." Prime Minister Zhu has a big smile on his face. He was pleased that he no longer had to face the Eyrie of the king. Mark placed the vehicle back into the inventory and returned the greetings with a slight bow. "It's been a while, Mr. Zhu. Sorry for arriving late. I had trouble with the fuel on the way." Fuel, Zhu Jianhong wondered what it might be. Is it some kind of beast, or some kind of gang, a guild, an organization perhaps? Chapter 209, The Imposter King of Western Moon. Seeing the look on the Prime Minister, Mark realized his mistake and clarified to him, "My vehicle consumes all types of oil, Mr. Zhu. I use that term when using it for transportation." "Ah, I see," Zhu Jianhong nodded in understanding. He had learned a new word and he liked it anyhow. "Anyway, please come in." Mark and Alan followed him to climb the steps to enter the palace. Meanwhile, from one of the rooms on the second floor, Princess Shen Ling was secretly watching them through the glass. The two maids were also with her. One of them readily spoke. "Who is Lord Lu between those two, Your Highness?" As Mark and Alan look equally handsome and young, although with different charms, the maids were confused for a moment. "Isn't it obvious? The short-haired guy must be servant judging by his stature and Prime Minister Zhu's greetings." Shen Ling replied to her before taking a look at them again. "Okay, at the very least, the rumors were right about his appearance, and actions say that he is also smart. Now, let's see what kind of personality this guy has." While she was taking a look in the mirror once again, Mark had entered the palace and proceeded towards the king's quarters. After walking for quite a bit, they finally reached an empty meeting chamber. Mark and Alan took a seat. The Prime Minister stayed with them while a royal knight went and informed the king. A few minutes later, Mark found a middle-aged fellow arrived there with a couple of royal knights. His clothes were luxurious, and his white hair is quite long to reach the knees. People would believe that he is quite old from behind. Still, his face was clean without any wrinkles. Mark couldn't help but compare this king to his biological father. And for some reason, his father appeared more dignified and had the aura of the emperor, while this guy looked like a shrewd, wealthy merchant instead of a king. This was Mark's first impression, and obviously, he kept his thoughts to himself. "It's our king," Zhu Jianhong whispered to Mark and got up on his feet. Mark and Alan followed the suit. As Shen Niu reached Mark, the latter followed the etiquette and made a deep bow. "Greetings, Your Majesty. I'm Lu Zhen, owner of Genesis Weapon Store. This is my brother, Alan Spencer." King Shen Niu found Alan's name strange, but he didn't react to it and just remarked, "You are quite late, Mr. Lu. I thought you rejected our invitation." Before Mark gave the same excuse, Zhu Jianhong spoke for him. The king reacted the same way as the Prime Minister upon realizing the truth. "I see. I guess I misunderstood the situation. Then, would you like to stay for the dinner if that's not a problem?" Seeing the calmness of the king, Mark thought that his suspicions were right. They have a strong motive. He accepted it. "You must have been tired from all the travel. Please take a rest in our guest room until then. We'll talk later," the king said to him before taking his leave. Mark thanked him. Just as the king was leaving the place, Mark inspected him out of curiosity to check what realm he is in. As the information appeared before him, Mark's expression changed. "Shen Qiu. I thought his name is Shen Niu." He read the remaining details with sage's eyes. Shenkyu. Race human. Age 68. Rank 7 circle high. Spirit path summoner. Attribute dark. Affiliation Western Moon Kingdom. Description: twin brother of King Shen Niu and the Grand Prince of the Western Moon Kingdom. He is a necromancer. This guy isn't the king. It's his twin brother. Is this a prank on me or something? Mark was surprised by the info. If it is indeed as he thought it would be, then he would teach these guys a lesson before returning home, because it is not funny at all. Once the king is out of sight, the prime minister pointed to one of the royal knights that stayed behind. Mr. Lu, he will take the both of you to your rooms. He abruptly turned his head to look at the prime minister. Mr. Zhu, the one who came here was really the king. Zhu Jianhong nodded in affirmation. Of course he is. Who else can it be? Ding, you triggered a hidden quest. Save King Shen Niu. The moment Mark saw the quest title, realization dawned upon him. He doesn't need to be suspicious of the incident no longer. Nothing, I heard that King Shen Niu is quite old. He looked younger in person, that's all. Mark gave a quick excuse to him, to which the latter replied with a nod. Maybe, it's because our Majesty had broken through to 7 Circle recently. I guess this is how he covered up his realm, huh? Mark couldn't help but suspect this fake king is behind his brother's disappearance. Of course, there's always a possibility that he might be acting as the king for the stability of the kingdom, but Mark cannot think positively when the matter involves the royal family. Well, before he came to a conclusion, he had to read the quest details. Mark thought that it would be better to be alone. After a while, he and Alan separated, going to different guest rooms. After ordering Alan to take a rest, Mark calmly sat on the chair and opened the quest details. Hidden quest: save King Shen Niu. Description: King Shen Niu was imprisoned somewhere in the Qincheng prison. Break into the prison, save the king, and help him reclaim the throne. Reward: choose a warship, destroyer, submarine. Time limit: no. Condition for failure: King Shen Niu dies. Note: the quest will be cancelled if not accepted within 24 hours. Accept. Oh, the system is finally offering me the Navy power, huh? Mark was first excited about the rewards, but then he fell into thoughts, wondering about their capabilities, followed by other things. Are they ether ones like the attack helicopter, or were they normal ones, which can be unlocked and mass-produced? Both have their own advantages. If it is the former, then I will have to go with a submarine, but if it is the latter type, then I might have to choose the destroyer. Well, let's put aside that matter for a second and think about how to accomplish this task. First of all, I need to gather info on this Qincheng prison, especially how powerful the strongest guard is. If it had been Elena, she would have easily rescued him without making any fuss, but if I had to do it, then it would be the same as waging a war in the middle of the night. That means I won't have much time in saving the king. After that, I also need to capture the imposter and keep him alive. Only then the quest will go smooth. But then, what if Shen Niu fails to get recognized by his family? I don't even know how long he was being imprisoned there. And once everything is solved, what if the queen does something bad like suicide because of her tarnished reputation, or worse, punished by the court for adultery? This world isn't modern, and the rules were quite unforgiving for women, whether they were of high social status or not. Who knows? She might be punished for the mistake she hasn't done. What happens then? Will I make a new enemy instead of an ally? There are too many issues. In the end, he let out a deep sigh and went to the bed to take a rest for a while to not overthink unnecessarily. Chapter 210. What will I gain from opening a new branch in this kingdom? A couple of hours later, Mark woke up from his nap and had a shower before sending a message to Alan. The android came to Mark's room and asked, "Your orders, big brother." Was there any soldier outside? Mark replied with a question. As Alan nodded in response, Mark then said, "Go and tell him that I wish to meet the king." About 15-20 minutes later, the soldier returned with a message from his superior about the invitation to the dinner. Mark accepted it and left his room at around 8:45. After a while, Mark reached the door of a chamber. The soldier opened the door for him, revealing a round table where the Prime Minister, the impostor king, and another young man were waiting for him. Mark's eyes fell on everyone and vice versa. Since he had already known about Shen Qiu and Zhu Jianhong, he stared at the prince and inspected his details. Shen Jai, the son of Shen Qiu, I see. No wonder both of them are together. Now I wonder whether this prince is in cahoots with his father. Maybe he was unaware like everyone, but those chances are slim. Mark thought for a bit and walked towards them. Mr. Lu, this is Prince Shen Jai, His Majesty's nephew, and Your Highness. This is Lu Zhen and his servant Alan. After greeting them, the Prime Minister introduced the prince to Mark and Alan. However, Mark wasn't pleased by the introduction and corrected him. I treat him as my younger sibling, Mr. Zhu, and not a servant. Maybe it was because he named Alan after his younger brother, or maybe it's because he started his journey with Alan. Whatever reason it might be, this male android was special to Mark, in fact, more than anyone else in the current world, and he is quite sensitive to the matters when it concerns Alan. Seeing the look of seriousness on him, the king harshly scolded the Prime Minister for not showing proper hospitality towards the guest. Prime Minister Zhu felt humiliated, and even Mark could see the look of aggravation on him, but didn't speak much, because everything will be over soon once the real king returns. Once they have taken their seats, the wine was served. Mark didn't forget to inspect it through his sage eyes and confirm that there was nothing mixed in it. Only then does he take the sip before looking at Shen Qiu to inquire about the purpose of the invitation. Considering how he was late by several hours and still received a warm reception, he grew curious about the matter. Before he opened up the topic, Shen Qiu started a conversation. So, Mr. Lu, how's your business going on? It's not been very long since we set up the store, Your Majesty, but it's going very well, I should say, Mark replied. But then he suddenly felt that his response was too modest. So he bragged a little bit, trying to test everyone's reaction. A treaty was formed between our store and the Imperial Army of Phoenix. Now, only the weapons manufacturing facility is left. Once it will be completed, then everything will be set. I see. Contrary to Mark's expectation, Shen Qiu was quite calm, as if it was either within his calculations or has no interest in the matter. On the other hand, Prince Shen Jai, who wasn't blessed with ether, displayed his interest. I heard that your store sells this weapon that can kill even 5 Circle Realm experts. I asked Prime Minister Zhu to bring me one when he visited your home, but he forgot about it. I will have to go to the Imperial City very soon anyway, Prince Shen. I will make sure to bring loads of them with me. Zhu Jianhong knew that if he defends himself or apologizes, it will only bring him trouble later. So he tackled it in a different way. And before this unnecessary topic gets dragged, he diverted it by raising an important one. By the way, Mr. Lu, earlier, when I received you at the entrance, you have mentioned that you are trying to reconsider our offer about opening the store's branch here in Lunaris City because of the familiarity with your neighborhood. So, did you think about it? Mark had expected this topic would come, and he was well prepared to answer. However, if it was just this, then he would be disappointed for sure. I thought about it, but I don't find the reason why should I open a new branch here, hundreds of kilometers away from my home, replied Mark with his attention placed on the king instead. He further explained, I mean, as I said earlier, my business is doing extremely well in the Imperial City. I may have enemies there, but the Emperor appeared to be quite friendly. So, if I had to open a new branch, I can choose a nearby place. Why should I open here and risk my relationship with the Imperial Palace? I heard that the Western Moon Kingdom and Phoenix Empire have a lot of issues between them. What will I gain here if I open a new branch in your kingdom? Will there be any benefits that can offset the risks? And in return, do I need to provide your army with something like the attack helicopters or battle tanks? What about a manufacturing facility? What about the merchants who can supply the raw materials? Will the access to the Leon Empire be smooth? Mark had a quest waiting to be completed, So he already planned on opening a branch either in this city because of the kingdom's connectivity with the Leon Empire. However, he knew that he cannot appear to be in need either. This way, he would an edge over the other party during negotiations. Even if everything fails, he won't lose anything. There's still Western Yan. Once he was done with a series of questions, he ended the reply. If you are interested, please prepare a clean presentation of issues like these when putting forward a proposal, and then we will negotiate the terms. Oh, and lastly, can I confirm whether the reason for this meeting was originally the store? Mark then waited for their response, but he saw a look of shock on everyone's faces. Seriously, don't they have any plans at all? Is the invitation done in a moment of impulse? Or do they think he was being too much for opening a mere branch? Mark wondered what was going on in their minds. The king and the prince glanced at the prime minister to give a reply, but Zhu Jianhong's aim was never the store. He only wants the alliance with Mark, who is not only powerful enough to trouble the noble clans of the Phoenix Empire, but also knows a mysterious existence that brought these modern weapons to this world. In his view, Mark's secret manufacturer might have been someone from a different mortal world where an advanced civilization exists. Who knows, they might even be from a higher plane of existence. The planes of existence are mysterious to everyone, so it is left to one's imagination. Zhu Jianhong then quickly thought of something and said, "By tomorrow morning, I will prepare a complete contract for you, but before that, may I ask a couple of things?" Mark nodded in response. "Go on."